I thought in this project there were a lot of jokes that we wrote and absolutely loved, and just did not fit the flow, did not fit the theme, and I don't really know why that is, but it's definitely something I noticed is, a joke that, an idea that I would bring to you as a joke right now is something that we normally like. I mean, that's pretty much all almost the weekend was. It's just all these jokes. And then in adaptation, it's more of, follow this character, and if that joke doesn't work, it doesn't work.
There's a tricky balance, I think, of the tone in this one because we say that it's kind of meant to be follow the tone of maybe somebody who is telling a story about the period in their life, and so it's heightened and then maybe played down in various parts, and so we could kind of get goofy at times, but we have to be very selective, I think, about where that happens, and so we sort of save those moments because there's a lot of sort of the same. I don't know, the tone. I don't know. It's a very delicate tone, I think, because you don't have the story does not create an obvious tone, and we don't. We try to actually, I think, maybe by virtue of the fact that it doesn't follow a very obvious. The plot sequences are not. It's not an obvious sequence of events. It's kind of always keeping you on your toes, both in terms of the events, the characters you encounter, and just the tone. Kind of has to have that same level of. I think anything I say is just going to sound like there's not a word like I can't say like enigma or it's a nebulous tone or something like that because I just sound like a jerk. But I think that was something that on the page there's a big difference between looking on the page and then sort of when you find exactly what that tone needs to be. And I think that's something that's changing even as we're editing. I think the first time we watched it with the temp score, I really liked it, but then getting that. The original score even added a more, I think, cohesive tone to the movie overall. That when you have all those other things, I think it's easier for the audience to go along with it because we're sort of always trying to subvert your expectations, you think, I mean, the obvious setup to this pitch is just that the guy grows up. He starts off as a kid and he grows up. And that is kind of the trajectory of the movie, but we do our best for 80 minutes to hide that. Just because otherwise it's boring, I think. And so that's my really, really long answer to why maybe things worked on the page but didn't work, just because of the delicate balance. The paradox of this question, I think, is for some reason we never make the same sort of film twice. So, like, I could tell you exactly how we should film Almost a Weekend, and I could tell you probably exactly how we should have filmed Adoptation, and then for some reason we don't do that next, though, because then I'm doing something different next, and then I'll have completely different problems. I think there's a million little things, but in terms of, like, structuring a shoot, we had no concept of how to do that in our first movie, and now we just have a concept of how to do that, but each movie is going to present its own problems, and we don't do a good job of getting ourselves ready for those based on past experiences. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick anything, it would be maybe letting certain crew members take over various aspects. I mean, Chris did a fantastic job with sound, and I think if we just let him do that from the beginning and not worried about it, it'd just be one less thing to worry about.
Well, that's one thing is just what equipment's going to work for you and your needs and what isn't, and we, through failing miserably with certain things, know not to do that next time. I would shoot chronologically, I think, in this one particularly, just because it would be a complete pain and it would take a lot more time, but just by virtue of the way the story goes, I think it would be a lot easier on Will.
Yeah.
To do it that way. And to be honest, I never want to shoot that many scenes of a guy waking up and going to sleep in the same location consecutively again. I never want to shoot that many consecutive car scenes again.
Well, it's funny because when we plan it, we think, we'll just do all these together. But then you don't realize that if you don't get a change of pace sometimes, the scenes become stale.
You get so tired of it. Like, this whole movie is them talking in cars now. I'm amazed at people like Alexander Payne who like so many movies has all these long car talk scenes. Car talk.
There's a whole show about having coffee in cars and saying funny things.
Except Seinfeld has a million GoPros set up all over.
That's true.
I mean, I can shoot that way. Yeah. I mean, that was all single camera in the cars. I mean, it was just, we didn't have a zoom lens on this movie for very much of it. Or we did have one, but it was not good for car scenes, and so we would kind of, it's a 24 millimeter or it's a 50 millimeter in the cars, and that's it. I think we pretty much used the 50 the whole time in all of the scenes, and even that when you're limited to, you can move around in like 2 different places and you have the same lens in the same location for like 6 consecutive scenes. It's just, I hate that.
We also need to point out that we use very small, cramped cars for everything. So putting like 4 or 5 people into these little cars is just not the greatest idea.
That's true. The one car scene that I liked filming was the one with Fago and Will when he's buying the car.
That was great.
That was fun. That was static though; they weren't moving, so that's the key. And I don't think it was that hot that day too. That's another thing. In cars, when you have a lot of people crammed in, and a lot of the time you can't open the windows because it's just going to be too loud. Whatever. I don't know where I was going with that. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I don't remember the question.
The future of Fatherson Productions. Well, it'd be nice to keep making movies.
That doesn't sound very promising. Is the issue I have with that response.
My next movie. Our next movie as a company is Naomi Jones, which I'm directing solo because we had a messy breakup, and we don't like each other anymore. Even he is still going to be acting and producing because it's just in the contract that even if we hate each other, we have to.
That's how it works.
Be able to profit off of each other's inventions. That's going to be a fun project. I think we're closer to having sort of a troupe of people that keep coming back and working on our movies, which is important to me. I don't know. Ben can probably talk a little bit about what's the difference. This is probably an opportunity to talk about where we differ because we're at a point where there's sort of moving into different avenues. It's not the next one, at least, is not going to be something we're writing. The next one for each of us is not one we're co-writing and co-directing, unlike the last 2.
I just think in terms of, why that happened. It's kind of like, all right, we know that we can make a movie now, and then we had this great idea for another one, but now it's like, all right, let's make these 2 movies that we want to make before it's too late. So we'll get these 2 out of the way and then kind of see where it goes. I think. In terms of the directions we're taking, I know we've sort of talked about this a little bit, but you are really enjoying writing and directing, and I am enjoying more of the producer side of that. And so I think it's working in this fantastic way where we will still have projects, whether you write them, I write them, whoever directs them. And because we both have this interest in the 2 different sides, I think it's going to lead to a lot of productivity.
I'd like to have a movie a year, forever, for the next 70 years.
Maybe even 80.
I really like the schedule of filmmakers like Woody Allen or Robert Altman or Joe Swanberg, even to some extent. I couldn't do the Joe Swanberg like 7 movies in a year thing ever. But there's something about, to me anyway, I really like that. I feel like I'm kind of in a different place every year anyway, for now. So for now, it makes sense to me that I kind of want to represent through whatever I'm working on, wherever I'm at that year, because I feel like each year is enough time where I can kind of do other things and then come back and have something different to say. And so it's important to me to kind of have that rhythm, because when I finish, as soon as we finish editing Adoptation, I already am like, I'm ready to, okay, let's start rehearsals, let's start getting this ready, let's get going. It's my mentality, and I don't know when that'll, die off, but I think I'm stuck with this now, just based on my brain.
I also love that we're finally getting some of those smaller projects to take up the time in between the other ones. Because even though it's probably just, all right, I want to do another project and we can't yet, it's still fun to see, you know, short stories and whatever else come together. So I think that's where we're going to end up having a movie a year and then another project or two. Something smaller.
Some web series
Mhm.
in the works.